بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد. To continue in the study of Nukhbatul Fikr of Imam Ibn Hajr rahimahullah, we're now going to enter into the book where the author rahimahullah starts to talk about some of the affairs of the science of hadith. Last week we took an introduction regarding this book, and today inshallah we'll enter into some of the affairs. Now, before I start, it's important that these terminologies we're going to mention now, that you memorize them. Because you'll find this in almost every book, that they mention this terminology from the latter scholars. So he says, rahimahullah, al-khabar, the reports are either without any specific defined number, meaning they have many routes, a specific number greater than at least two paths. I'm going to explain what after once we read it. A specific number greater than at least two paths, a report that comes with only two paths, and a report that comes with only one path, or we could say route. One that comes with many routes, one that comes with more than two routes, one that comes with two routes only, and one that comes with one route. The first one is mutawatir and conveys definite knowledge when its conditions are met. The second is al-mashhur and is also called al-mustafid according to an opinion. The third is aziz and is not a condition for sahih in contrary to the opinion of some. And the fourth is al-gharib. All of them except for the first, the first which is mutawatir, is ahad. The rest are all ahad. So here he's going to talk about al-mutawatir and ahad. And we're going to explain that today. This is something which is important, for you find the innovators, they use this often. We won't accept this because it's ahad. We won't accept this because it didn't come by way of tawatur. And none of this. So it's important for us to understand what is intended by the scholars when they mention mutawatir and ahad. First and foremost, he mentioned al-khabar. Al-khabar, the scholars say it's a synonym for hadith. Al-khabar is a synonym for hadith. Some say that hadith, when you say hadith, it is that which comes from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and khabar is that which comes from other than him. So some scholars say hadith is that which comes from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and khabar is that which comes from other than him. But it is also said that every hadith is a khabar, and not every khabar is a hadith. Nonetheless, hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is well known. Statements and actions, what takrirat, his approvals, and other than that. And khabar, a lot of times, is used for other than the statements of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So when you find al-athar, they could be used as well for hadith, but it could also be used for those who come after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Linguistically, khabar means news, a report or news. And technically, it could either mean, as we said, same as hadith, statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or it could mean a khabar which includes hadith, but it is statement of other than the Prophet as well. Or it could be that we say it is a statement of other than the Prophet ﷺ. So either we say it's same as hadith, or a statement of other than the Prophet, or it includes hadith and also statements of other than the Prophet ﷺ. Nonetheless, al-khabar, all of it is news. The intent behind this is that we try to find out the authenticity or the weakness of this news. Whether it's from the Prophet ﷺ or whether it's from the Sahaba or other than them, we try to find the authenticity of this report that has come to us. If it is authentic, we accept it. And if it is weak, we don't accept it. Now, what is intended by routes in a statement that they come by many routes? Meaning they come by many chains, isnad. The chain in Arabic is called isnad. Meaning many routes, they come by way of many chains. The chain isnad is basically the chain of narrators which reaches to the matan. So we have isnad and we have matan. The isnad is the chain of men that leads to the matan, which is the text. And then we have matan, which is the actual text of the narration. So we have isnad, which is the chain of men that leads to the matan, to the text. And then we have something called a matan, which is the actual text of the narration. So when he mentions routes, he's talking about the isnad. It has many chains. Al-mutawatir, that he mentions first, in the Arabic language, it means something which is consecutive. And it is something which is consecutive and occurs out of succession. Now, in the technical terms, it is that which is narrated by such a large number that it is impossible that they would have made up a lie and agreed upon it. It is something, mutawatir, again in the technical term, is that which is narrated by such a large number that it is impossible that all of those narrators would have agreed upon a lie and made it up. So here we get from this mutawatir is a narration which is related by a very large number from the beginning of the chain to the end of it. From the beginning of the chain to the end of it, there's a large number of narrators narrating it. And this number of excessive amount of men or a lot of men is found in every level of the chain. Every level of the chain. So example, the beginning of the chain has 20 men, the middle of the chain has 20 men, the next part of the chain has 30, and then the last part has maybe 40. This shows there's a lot of narrators in every part of the chain. And they couldn't have agreed upon a lie. They couldn't have agreed upon a lie. Now mutawatir could be in its wording or in its meaning. Mutawatir could be في لفظه أو في معناه, in its meaning or in its wording. As for wording, it comes from the Prophet ﷺ, for example, من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever lies upon me on purpose, let him take his seat in the hellfire. This narration is mutawatir. من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever lies upon me on purpose, let him take his seat in the hellfire. This narration was reported by 60 Sahaba radiallahu anhum, including all of the 10 that were promised paradise. So this narration was reported by 60 Sahaba, including all of the 10 that were granted or promised paradise. Showing us is reported by a large number of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. The 6 Sahaba could not have agreed upon a lie. Shows that this is something that shows complete certain knowledge that this was a statement of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Or it could come that is mutawatir in its meaning. The scholars give many examples of that. For example, raising the hands in dua, it comes by way tawatur in its meaning. The text, the wording might not be the same in all the narrations, but the meaning of it is the same. Raising the hands in dua is by way of mutawatir. So many related and narrated that it could not be a lie. Also, the narration which come regarding ash-shafa'ah, intercession, are by way of a tawatur. There are so many of them that there could be no way that these Sahaba or all of these righteous, trustworthy narrators agreed upon a lie. Now, someone may ask, how do we come to a conclusion that this narration is mutawatir? Number one, by way of compiling the different chains of narration. Compiling the different chains of narration, you'll be able to see how many chains there are or how many have narrated it. But this is an affair that goes back to the scholars of hadith. This is an affair that goes back to the scholars of hadith. Imam Al-Bani rahimahullah, also Ibn Kathir, and others that mention that to rule upon a narration that is mutawatir, it goes back to the scholars of hadith. If they relate and said that this narration mutawatir, it's mutawatir, we accept it. If they haven't said that, we don't come now and start saying this one's mutawatir and that one's not mutawatir. Rather, we go back to what they have mentioned. Now, what is the point of knowing something mutawatir? If you know a narration mutawatir, you don't have to search regarding its authenticity. Because they could not have agreed upon a lie. They could not have agreed upon a lie. If the scholars mention this is mutawatir, then it is something that you don't have to do al-nadhar. You don't have to look and research. There's no need for research. For that reason, they say that which comes after it, you do by way istidlal and nadhari. You have to look and research regarding it. But mutawatir, you don't have to research. You don't have to research regarding it. Because the scholars mention this narration mutawatir. Example, man kadhaba alayhi muta'ammidan falyatabawa maq'adahu min an-nar. Someone going to say now, I don't know if this hadith is authentic. Came from 60 Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And the scholars, in every part of the chain, there's many narrators that narrated it. No one's going to say that this narration is not authentic. Then after that, if the affair mutawatir is known, then after that he mentions mashhur, a narration which is mashhur or known as mustafid as well. Mashhur means a narration which is well known. That means that the least you have in any parts of the chain of this narration is 3. So when it comes to the science of hadith, in these affairs you rule upon the least amount. That's important to understand. So let's say you have a hadith, it comes by way of 10 chains, or of 3 chains, and in one part of the narration you have 5 people, or the chain 5 people. Another part you have 6 people. Another part you have 3 people. What number do we go back to? 3. The ruling goes back to the 3. So if you see in any part of this chain or narration 3, it is called mashhur. It is called mashhur. An example of this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبِضُ الْعِلْمِ انْتِزَاعًا. Allah does not snatch all of knowledge all at once. يَنْتَزِعُهُ مِنَ الْعِبَادِ. He takes it away from the slaves. وَلَكِنْ يَقْبِضُ الْعِلْمِ بِقَبْضِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. But rather he snatches this knowledge by the death of the scholars. حَتَّى إِذَا لَمْ يُبْقِ عَالِمًا. Until a scholar does not remain. اتَّخَذَ النَّاسُ رُؤُوسًا جُهَالًا. The people will take as their leaders people who are ignorant. They will ask them, or they will be asked, فَأَفْتُوا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. They'll give fatwa without knowledge. فَضَلُّوا وَأَضَلُّوا. They'll misguide themselves and others. This narration, if you to look at the chains of this narration, you'll find that the least you'll find in these chains is 3. So this narration is mashhur, according to the scholars of hadith. Now we're talking about mashhur, we're talking about something which is known to the scholars of hadith. For something maybe mashhur to the common folk, or other than them, which is not mashhur to the scholars of hadith. And I'll give you an example. It is well known that some people say there's a hadith that says, اختلاف أمتي رحمة. That the differing of my ummah is mercy. This is well known amongst the people. They say, but does that mean the narration is authentic? No, there's no asl for this narration. There's no foundation or nowhere this narration is found, اختلاف أمتي رحمة. For example, then the narration which is well known amongst the people, نية المؤمن خير من عمله. The intention of a person or a believer is better than his actions. This narration is fabricated, although it's widespread amongst the people. So we're talking about mashhur being well known, we're talking about what is well known with the scholars. And that is that the least amount you'll find in the chain narration is 3 people. It's 3 people. Now mashhur could be authentic, it could also be weak. So you have to study the chain of narration to find out if this narration is authentic or this narration is weak. Then he mentions Aziz. Aziz in the Arabic language means something which is rare or strong. Now that which it intended here in the science of hadith is that which in no part of the chain of narration you'll find less than 2 narrators. You'll find less than 2 narrators. So think of mashhur as 3, Aziz as 2, and we'll come to what is known as 1. An example of this is the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من والده وولده. None of you will truly believe until I am more beloved to him than his father and his child. This narration, it comes from 2 Sahaba, Anas and Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh. This narration comes from 2 Sahaba, Anas and Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhuma. From them, from Anas, 2 Tabi'in took it from him. Qatada, or Afwan, Qatada and Abdul Aziz ibn Suhaib. So Qatada took it from him and Abdul Aziz ibn Suhaib. From Qatada, Shu'bah and Sa'id took from him. Showing us here in this narration in this chain you have 2 people. The least you'll find is 2 people. From that we understand that it is something which is known as Aziz with the scholars of hadith. It is known as Aziz with the scholars of hadith. The last one he mentions is Gharib. Linguistically, Gharib means singular, something which is singular. As for the science of hadith, it is that which is known, the least you'll find in the chain narration is 1 person narrating the hadith. Anyone know an example of this? We've mentioned it before. A hadith which is Gharib. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ is a hadith which is Gharib. Why is that? Because it comes from 1 chain. It comes from the chain of Yahya Sa'id al-Ansari, from Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi, from Al-Qama ibn Waqqas, from Umar ibn Khattab, from the Prophet ﷺ. It is only authentically reported from 1 Sahabi radiallahu anh, and that is Umar. And from Umar, it is only authentically reported from Al-Qama ibn Waqqas, from Umar. And from him, Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi, from him, Yahya Sa'id al-Ansari. After Yahya Sa'id al-Ansari, many people narrated this narration. This is a hadith which is Gharib. This is important to understand. Why? Because now we come to the affair where some people, they say, we won't accept a hadith which is ahad. But you find the individual relaying the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. And this shows this tanaqud, this contradiction. Now, this is basically what he intended to reach today. Mutawatir is something which relate, or before that, we'll ask the students, what is mutawatir? Anyone want to answer what is mutawatir? No. So how do we get an understanding that this narration is tawatur or mutawatir? Who decides that for us? The scholars of whom? The scholars of fiqh? No, the scholars of hadith. The scholars of hadith are the ones who identify to us the narration mutawatir. Also, when it comes to mutawatir, do you have to research regarding it? Why not? Because there's no way they would have. There's no way that all of them would agreed upon a lie. There's no all of them agreed upon a lie. Now we go to ahad is the following: mashhur, aziz, and gharib are all ahad. What is mashhur? How many narrators the least amount found in the narration? 3. And what is an example of that? Inna Allah la yakbidul ilm intiza'in. Allah does not snatch knowledge all the way all at once. What is the next one? Aziz. Aziz, how many people the least could be found? 2. And what is the example of it? La yu'minu ahadukum hatta akuna habba ilayhi min walidihi wa waladihi. None of you will truly believe until more beloved to him than his father and his child. And the last one is, what is known the last one as? Gharib. And what is an example of it? And which Sahabi is this only authentically reported from? Umar radiallahu anh. So if you see someone go on the minbar tomorrow, or on Friday, and he says, it comes from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ, it shows his ignorance. He shows his ignorance. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So from that you understand that these things are also important to understand. Before we end, I want to mention now that it's important to memorize these things. These things are important to memorize, but nonetheless, this affair of mutawatir and ahad, this is something that the Salaf, they didn't know about. Or the Salaf did not discuss that. Rather, this was something which was innovated by the Mu'tazila. I'm going to clarify now that this is something, mutawatir and ahad, this classification that this is mutawatir and this is ahad is not from the way of the Salaf. Rather, this was innovated after the Salaf by some of the Mu'tazila. They did this, why? To reject narrations regarding the belief system, regarding Aqidah. They did to reject narrations regarding Aqidah. You'll find them, they say, I don't believe in this aspect of Aqidah because it comes by way of ahad, meaning it's not mutawatir. And ahad narrations, they yufid al-dhan, they benefit conjecture, not certainty. So because beliefs cannot be built upon conjecture and have to be built upon certainty, I won't accept it. This is their argument. The scholars who say that mutawatir and ahad, they relate this distinction or this categorization. They say if you intend by it just to merely mention the numbers, this mutawatir is, and they're reported by many people, and mashhur is reported by 3, aziz is reported by 2, and gharib is reported by 1. If that is what your intent is, there's no problem with it. La mushaha fil istilah. There's no harm in mentioning terminologies. There's no problem with that. But if your intention is, or the person's intent is that he wants to reject narrations by way of this categorization, we say this is where it's not allowed. This is where it's not allowed. Any narration that comes authentic from the Prophet ﷺ, and we'll mention the condition of a sahih narration next week. It comes authentic from the Prophet ﷺ, it is a must to accept it. The scholars who mention, for example, mutawatir, yufidul ilm, it benefits you knowledge. And I mention this why? Because there's groups now in Toronto that will bring about this doubt. They'll bring about this doubt. They say your system is built upon narration ahad. Narrations which have not reached the level of tawatur. They'll say to you that mutawatir yufidul ilm. Mutawatir yufidul ilm. What does that mean? 100% is the same as the Prophet ﷺ. Remember we said before in our lesson of Usul al-Fiqh that there's ilm which means 100%. After that is dhan. How much is dhan? 75 to 99% is a dhan. What is the next one? Shak. What is shak? 50%. You're doubtful. And then there's al-wahm. Al-wahm, which means 25% sure that this is right or wrong. What they intend when they say mutawatir yufidul ilm, 100%, it is same as the Prophet ﷺ. When they say al-ahad yufidul dhan, meaning because the ones who relate it, they're human beings, they can make mistakes, so we maybe go to 99%, 98%. That's what they intend. The scholars who say yufidul dhan, none of the scholars have ever said, from them An-Nawawi, from them Ibn Salah, from them Ibn Wazir, from them As-San'ani, and other the scholars that mentioned this affair, none of them have said that it is not a must to act regarding the hadith when it is authentic. Even if they say yufidul dhan, and if there's qara'in, there's certain side factors that make it yufidul ilm, they mean by that, they did not mean that you do not have to act in accordance with it. They say it's wajib. If it's authentic report from the Prophet, whether from route of one person, or 2 people, or 3, or more, you must act in accordance to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and accept it. Whether that is in beliefs, or whether that is in affairs of ahkam, rulings. And I mention this, why? Because you'll find some people now, they'll say to you, as Imam Muqbil rahimahullah mentions, you advise him regarding leaving his beard. He says in narration regarding the beard, I don't have to leave my beard. Why? Because the narration is not mutawatir. Or example, he says to you, when you send pictures are haram, you can't take pictures. He says narration ahad, they're not mutawatir. The scholars who've said that ahad and mutawatir, they meant this distinction, none of them ever said, do not act according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The only ones that said that were the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira and other than them. So if you see someone say, I'm not going to act according to the hadith of ahad, he's not a scholar of hadith. Rather, he's leaning towards the opinion of the Mu'tazila and the Asha'ira. This is important. Why? Because if you've understood this, Imam Ibn Baz rahimahullah mentions, فَالْأَمَلْ وَاجِبِ الْحَدِيثِ الثَّابِتَ الصَّحِيحِ. It is a must for you to act in accordance to hadith which is authentic and authentic report from the Prophet ﷺ. وَإِن لَمْ يُفِدِ الْعِلْمِ. Even if it is not mutawatir. Even if not, if its narration comes by way of only one person, 2 people or 3 people, there's no problem. The proof of that is, the Prophet sometimes will send how many people to go to talk to rulers? Will he send 100 people all the time to go talk to this ruler and that individual? Du'at? No, he didn't. For example, he sent to Yemen whom? He sent to Yemen how many people? At that time to give da'wah. Mu'adh al-Jabal and who? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu. Did he say, no, it has to be many people that go send out? No. Similarly, when he sent to Herakl, how many people did he send? To give the letter to Herakl. How many? One person. The Sahaba and the scholars have agreed that it is not permissible to reject the narration merely because it was reported by way of ahad. If it is authentic report from the Prophet by way of his chain, you must accept it. The same individual that says statements like this, he accepts the narration of the Prophet, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. And we've come to know that the narration is gharib. It only came by way of one person, one route. So this argument that they have, that whether you feed al-ilm or you feed al-dhan, this is a statement that a person leaves off. Rather we say if the hadith is authentic from the Prophet ﷺ, authentically reported from the Prophet ﷺ, we say whether it's brought to one person, 2, 3, 100, it is authentically reported, it is accepted. And it is a must to act in accordance to it, in accordance to the way the scholars understood it. It is a must to accept it and to not have doubt regarding it, whether that is in your belief system, whether that is in regards to ahkam, whatever it may be. It's authentic report from the Prophet ﷺ, it is something to be acted upon. إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. The scholars agree upon this, 4 madhahib agree upon this. If the hadith is authentic, it is my madhab. But yet you'll find people who ascribe to these madhahib, and they say to you, you know what, this hadith is authentic, or this hadith is authentic, but you feed the dhan. It doesn't benefit me yaqeen. No one scholar said that. Other than the people of innovation, for that reason, important to understand that those people now in this city or other cities that call to this, that you must understand these kind of affairs to have some kind of weapon with you when they bring these doubts. If you don't, you're going to start thinking, oh, but this one, the scholars say Ibn Salah, and this Ibn Qayyim, and other scholars say you feed the dhan. And you're going to have doubt regarding it. So from the homework that I'm going to give the brothers today, as I mentioned, this class is not merely for you to listen and not write, but this class is for you to do research later on and try to understand and comprehend. The scholars, regard to this affair of yufid al-dhan, they went to 3 statements. Now, the statements they went to, number 1, was that any hadith which is ahad, it is yufid al-ilm. It benefits one with knowledge, 100%. From those who said that was Ibn Hazm. From those who said that was Dawood al-Zahiri. From those who said that was al-Muhasib and other than them. The second statement of the scholars regarding this affair was that yufid al-dhan mutlaqan. It always benefits conjecture. From those who said that was Ibn Wazir and other scholars as well. They mentioned this. They ascribed this to An-Nawawi as well, rahimahullah. They said this. And the third statement is that the scholars, they mentioned that yufid al-dhan, but it could lead to yaqeen if there's qara'in, if there's side affairs. The homework is, this last statement is a correct statement. But the homework is, you have to find out what are those qara'in. What are those side affairs that take this narration to yufid al-ilm, to benefit you with knowledge. Similarly, the next homework that you have is you have to go to a book like At-Taqrib of Ibn Hajr rahimahullah. As I mentioned before, this book is the easiest one you'll find to be able to read. And you're going to go find the biography of Qatada, the student of Anas, and Abdul Aziz ibn Sahib, the student of Anas. And you're going to also find the biography of Shu'bah and Sa'id. And you're going to come next week, inshallah, and you're going to write it on a paper and you're going to give it to me. And then I'll ask the brothers, inshallah, regarding these affairs. If you're not able to find it, then don't worry, we'll answer next week, inshallah. But the whole purpose behind it is for you to research. This knowledge of science of hadith needs research and to look at books and read and comprehend. If you're not able to also find it, then the first one is harder, but the second one, you could go online, look up Taqrib of Ibn Hajr, and you'll be able to find the names. You'll be able to find the names. We'll stop with this much. If there are any quick questions, we'll take now. We'll continue next week, inshallah. Then inshallah, continue next week.